Well, now, isn't that a buggy door? Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Immersive Worlds 101. Goodness gracious, quite a troublesome door. Let's just get rid of that. No. There we go. It's gone. No more door. All right. Hello. Welcome. Please, anyone who's in the instance, please get yourself some drinks over there, provided you by yours truly. And while I introduce myself, feel free to have a drink or two. Okay, welcome. Oh, thank you. It's weird that it's on. Anyway, hello. My name is Wishdream. I'm a virtual experience designer, outsourced contractor, and 3D artist of Fetch the Ferret, which is basically a pink ferret speedrun open world game made by a company named Ocritus, which is an indie game development team. Not exact company and development team. You've probably seen me before. I used to be a stage designer for Sonic World, and as well as a sim designer and a fashion designer for Second Life. I'm here to teach you guys how to make immersive worlds. And basically, this is not how to make a world, so this is not a tutorial. This is a way to change how you think about making your worlds. Right, it's basically the concept of world design and lessons from the industry that I've learned from, and how all of the psychology works. It involves multiple disciplines such as environment art, sound design, and user experience. So let's get started with the first thing, right? Let's start with the first and most important thing when you're making worlds is composition. It's the thing that makes us go, wow! Like when you entered the Furality the Luma lobby, that's the thing I'm talking about, right? So what's composition? Composition is the arrangement or placement of visual elements and might be considered as a layout, but it's not exactly. It's more of like the design of things, how it's kind of going to be placed and how it feels. Not the exact layout, however, it helps the layout. And it's very important because this is basically the sense of sight that we have. It's going to be the one that engrosses us, going to be eye-catching, it changes the mood, so it could be like as tight as compact as like a small elevator to a large world. And it affects everything. I do mean everything. Do not rush this by any means. Okay. In the game dev industry, this is the reason why we get a lot of references, why we got a lot of environment artists, a lot of concepts, designs. You don't have to do all of those things, but here's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. So in order to do composition, we have two questions. All right, we got what do you want to say and how do you want to say it? So let's take an example here. Limsa Lominsa. From the center, you could see the main town. It branches off over to the sides. On the bottom, we got the water to ensure that, well, this is a seafaring type of city. In the background, you could barely see the docks. And it has this European? I forgot that type of a structure, but definitely on the center, you could see it's the main point. Another one is Zeal from Chrono Trigger, and this is basically the Sea of Clouds. You could see the size and scale of the scope, while on the center is the main island, and, well, you're literally in front of a sea of clouds. So if you haven't figured it out yet, and how I describe things, this is essentially what do you want to say? The entire piece, right? This is your main focal point. This is where you build things around and everything is drawn to. It creates a bigger picture that allows you to make accidents and maybe be a little bit sloppy, but people people won't notice. This is what I mean. This is Olympia. Olympia is a VR chat world that you could visit right now if you want to, but stay here so you could see the entire presentation. Right over on the left side of the slide of the screen, we got the entire throne and city in view. And the moment you land on this place, you just go like, wow, this is beautiful, wonderful, and allows you to kind of move away from this. This is my friend Firesen, by the way. He's clipping into the stairs, and you also don't notice the little holes that is out from misplacement. You don't notice that. It allows you to focus on a bigger picture while you're building. So you don't have to be picture perfect and all of that. I trust you that it's much more easier than you think. So how do we harness this power? This power of making compositions. There's a simple trick. Everyone has it in their intuition, but they just can't tell it. And I'm going to teach you the secret spice. We got the 8 elements of composition. These 8 elements of composition is something that you notice whenever you go into the world, and somehow if you feel something off, it could be one of these things. And I'll go through them as we talk over here, since we don't have much time. So sit down and get ready. So let's start off with Unity. Not this Unity. This Unity. So over on the top slide, we got an example of a proper usage of each factor in the bottom, which is not a proper usage of each factor. So let's start with Unity. Unity is essentially the sense of belonging of different parts in one place. And for example, on the top, we have a clockwork town lovingly placed with like little trinkets and here and there. And on the bottom, somehow there's something off. Like maybe they're on the top right corner of that looks like a well-ish. Is that a well? It doesn't look like a well. On the bottom, why is there a well-decorated stone? And why is it so far away from everything else, right? So normally you'd find this is like if something is awkwardly out of place. It's like, for example, you find like a oddly futuristic item in a medieval period. That's one factor you could take on. Another is balance. Balance is basically the symmetry of the work. You don't have to be like super balanced as in like equal, right? Like it doesn't have to be like everything equal, like Thanos snap like half of the entire place. However, you should take note of how things feel. Like, does something feel off balance? Like this size is smaller, this size is larger for some reason. Like on the top, it's a good sense of balance. Symmetry, not asymmetry. And on the bottom, there's something wrong. It feels something off, right? You could take advantage of this as like it gives a sense of unease. The next one is movement. It's basically the thing that leads your eyes to something, right? It could be moving from up to down, top to bottom. A good note of this is actually the Luma lobby, not Luma lobby, the Aqua lobby, and it guides your eyes towards the center crystal, right? However, you could absolutely take advantage of this. On the bottom, you could make things like feel very stiff, very static. Like it feels like there's something dead, right? Sure, it's like a real life painting, but there's something dead about it, right? There's no sense of flow. The next one is rhythm. Basically, this is like, let's just say in visual terms, this is the beat of the music, right? It's the beat of the music, but in a way that's done in visual terms. Like, for example, on the top, we have a really nicely placed outside of Limsa Lumensa, where there is a couple of buildings well placed in between, because like boop boop bah, boop boop bah, kind of beat there. However, if you want to get something like a sense of shock out of someone, on the bottom we have a world, a randomly generated Minecraft world that somehow got corrupted. It's a perfect way to get someone confused or uneasy when you're standing there. And it's also a great piece of, like, if you're doing dreams, for example, like imagine going into the bathroom and somehow you ended up at your boss's office. Focus. I think this is like the most thing that I think this is the most important thing about composition. And there could be multiple focuses. We got the in here, this is Gridania over here, the central aetheryte. Every town in Final Fantasy XIV has a central aetheryte, and this is where the focal point or in the center of the town is usually. And this is what we usually call hotspots. However, you could have multiple hotspots if you want, but there usually has a central hotspot to make everything and let your eyes like refocus and get the whole picture. However, you could also have a way of having people getting lost. Don't give a central focal point. If you want to get people wandering, don't give it a central focal point. Contrast. Contrast is the difference between pieces. I'm sorry if I burned your eyes by showing the slide, but on the top, I used light as a contrast point because it allows you to focus, like just like the other slide, focus a little bit more on the piece. It allows you to show the most important thing compared to the other one, and it's enough of the difference to notice. And you could absolutely make someone bewildered by not having contrast at all. Or if you want to burn someone's eyes out, as like on this picture, like there is absolutely no contrast. It's really hard to look at, right? And yeah, pattern in world building sense is basically repeated shapes. And over here, this is the most prominent if we have repeating textures. On the top is the Dravanian hinterlands, and this is it zoomed out. You could totally see the repeating patterns. However, if you're actually on there, on the ground, you never notice it. So a proper usage of pattern will allow you to have a better sense of world scale, and it's not artificial, right? It's not like on the bottom where everything's like your textures are repeated way too often, way too small, unlike on the right side over there. Proportion. It's the scale and okay, hold on. Let me just change that. Proportions is the fit, size, or distance or scale of things. You could absolutely use this to a dramatic effect. If you want to make people feel small, have a towering tower. Or if you want to have things to feel like homely, have everything the same size. For example, on the top, it's just a well-balanced road, nice art piece. And on the bottom, well, that's the Alice in Wonderland world from Kingdom Hearts. And they absolutely use this effect to have some sense of wackiness, sense of being off, sense of crazy. And I don't know if you guys notice it, but can you feel what each slide had to offer? Like, you could feel it. You don't have to pay attention to it, but you could feel it. But by knowing these 8 compositions, you're allowing yourself to basically pinpoint what's wrong with your piece. This only does not apply to world design. In fact, it's applied everywhere in environment art. You could use this to also like design your levels in a video game. You could use this to design your worlds in VR chat, or maybe heck, even an art piece. This is a basic environment art concept. And I just want to quickly brush up on the types of composition over here, right? So one of these compositions is the rule of thirds. You probably heard it everywhere in like photography, or like design and all of that. But here is a thing, a little magical thing that I'll let you know afterwards. But these are different types of compositions that you could just use as a reference. We got your S, or compound curve. Like if you have a river, you could have it move around. You got the cross if you want to have something in a focal point of view that's like very far away but also very close. You got the triangle, which is it's just nice, equally balanced. It doesn't have to be like, super symmetrical. We got the steelyard, which is absolutely a thing that you could use to dwarf something. Radiating lines is a good way to do the motion thing that I said a while ago, which allows you to like radiate something. It also is a good way to contrast things. And we got O, or circular, which is very effective on like large lakes and center of the cities. And you'll see what I mean. So this is Luna Ascension here in VR chat. What do you guys think this is? I see a triangle in the middle, right? Once you know these types of composition, you'll see them everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. What's this one? Steelyard. We got like the small rock on the right corner. We got the large webbing on the left side. And this is just the entrance to Olympia, right? And it's simple. It doesn't have to be very complex. Here's another one. And this one is, I forgot, the cross. There we go. Using the tower as the center point, where it shows the main central point and it expands outwards to the right side. And here's one in Final Fantasy XIV. I just can't disclose the location. But if you notice here, this is a mix of both circle and the S pattern. The river takes on the S pattern while the circle is on the center. But I'm not done with circles yet. This is Gridania again. And did you notice something? In the center, it's a circle. And everything is built around it. So yeah, I hope that helps you guys on the sense of sight. Here's some tips. Whenever you guys do some composition, whenever you guys make your world, don't spend too much time in one area. Here's the thing, in my experience, you spend one time perfecting one area, you zoom out, suddenly it looks out of place. Make sure you give equal love to each part of the area. Don't try to perfect it. There is no such thing as perfect, just good enough. Remember that there will be a bigger picture. That's your focus first, not the every single part. You could do that after you've done the bigger picture and like you've got everything balanced. And for VR specifically, be a tourist. Keep it at eye level. And I'm saying this because like in VR, you don't get to see it in different points. You don't get to fly. You don't get to be a third-person view. You are there in person. So check your worlds in person. So let's move on to another thing that most people just ignore. Environment background. Please put your feet in the ground, Sprigato. I say, because environment background is basically the area outside of the playable field, right? Everywhere that you see here in Oceans of Luma, everything outside of the playable area, that's what we call an environment background. And the skybox is one of them. It's what we also call set dressing. However, set dressing also could apply within bounds of the player. It's to tell a story. Absolutely, like if you can't tell a story within the world, you could tell it outside. So, why is environment backgrounds important? It gives the sense that there's more out there. There's a larger sense of scale. It allows you to ground people and allows you to have them a comparison how big the area actually is. And most people just use skyboxes, which suddenly doesn't work because it's not really a good sense of scale. So whenever you're working on backgrounds, don't be lazy. The simple as that. Just don't be lazy, but you absolutely can be. I'm going to tell you guys how we do backgrounds. And it's very funny, actually, how like a lot of these are hacks that just play with people's minds. Okay? Let's rip off the band-aid away. Please don't rely on skyboxes. Like, unless that's your intention, please do not rely on skyboxes. I've seen way too many VRChat worlds. Like, I'm sure you guys already saw that. There's way too much VRChat worlds where it's just skybox and the place itself. It doesn't really give off a right sense of feeling. It's like sometimes you're floating off a entire building or up in the sky somewhere or somehow in the middle of space. It should be the last stage whenever you're working. In order to help you make those backgrounds, when you're making the stage, prototype the background too. This is what we call blockout stage, where we just prototype everything. We just get the layout right, we get the positioning correct, and you could apply the composition here right away. And if you do that with the background as well, it allows you to make the stage or the world feel real at the very start. And as you go on, take advantage of sightlines. Like, if you look around you, there's sightlines everywhere. It's the separator between the foreground and the background. And normally, most people will use this as like an elevated platform, elevated hill. Heck, even here in the stage right now, you could absolutely see the sightlines on how they're covering the background from the foreground, yet making it feel real. So, okay. So this one is an example here. This is PSO2 with the forest area in the group guild. So this is the hills over there. And if you actually look above, there's nothing there. You don't actually have to build the entire background. It's just nothing there. You just have to build the sideline to make it believe. And here's another friend that we mostly use, Alpha Pictures. This is Ace Combat 7 or 8, I think. And this is literally a JPEG dog in the middle of a cutscene, and you don't even notice it unless you look closely. This is someone's dog who's passed away. So it's a great tribute, but it's also funny. And Alpha Pictures, or basically what we call cutouts, are effective from very far away. No one will notice, and it just adds so much detail without the cost. Here's an example in The Mist in Final Fantasy XIV. On the very top, that's all just pictures of like grass, trees, and etc., etc. And then if you look far away, suddenly they don't look like pictures, aren't they? They look like they're just part in the background, like trees are actually there. So use that. Another friend of yours is low poly models. While this is a bad habit, decimate your models anyway. If you have like a high quality model and you want to put it in the background, decimate it. Put it in the way back. No one's gonna notice it. And abstract everything. And what we call abstraction here is like get the general shape of something and then plop down the picture there. Like on the bottom, we just took a picture of papers and then we just plopped it down to like this random garbled shape. And even up close, it looks convincing. Just abstract it. Here's another one in Limsa Molminza. This is a low poly version. If you're inside the game, you won't normally see this. But if you're in the central area, if you take a look very closely, it's actually low poly. And this is the view from very far away. It changes to a high quality model as you get closer, but it looks convincing very far away. Another friend of yours is GPU instancing. So like, let's say you have so many trees, right? So many trees. What it does, It allows your GPU to essentially use every duplicate object is going to be rendered as one. And it's really useful for repeated stuff. Example here, you don't notice it. This is the PSO2 forest area again. The trees and the stumps are actually just repeated things. Like all of them are repeats, rotated slightly. And you just don't notice it. And it's optimized because it's, well, GPU instanced. And it's a simple way to actually get this to work in Unity. And in fact, the VR chat docs loves to mention this. Please just tick the checkbox. There in the materials, if you scroll down, there should be enable GPU instancing, or depending on your type of shader, please just tick the checkbox. All right, billboards. This is basically a picture that always faces you and useful for faraway effects without particles. Like this, just maybe a loop animation, or maybe like a pre-rendered graphic animation that doesn't take much space. And here on the bottom, if we actually look at it without it being billboarded, it suddenly becomes flat. In fact, if you guys are in this stage right now, take a look at the side volcanoes and move your hand around a bit. That's billboarding in effect right there. And also you could use this for grass. Most people actually use this for grass in worlds. Like if you notice, if you go to like world that's very grassy, if you move your head around, you might notice that it's also turning along to your camera angle. All right, the secret technique is imposter. Wait, sorry, I'm not being sus here. I mean this imposter. This is like one of your friends. This is what we call fake objects, and they are essentially like 3D screenshots or 3D models, like projected on a shape. So like, let's say if I have a picture of someone, I could like take a picture of that, cut it out, and then put it in the background, and like somehow vaguely like model their body. So it looks like 3D, but it's actually not 3D. It's just like one side. As we say, we just take a photo and slap it onto a cube. Well, it's not really a cube if you look over here. It's like a nice little mountain over there. Here's a couple of examples of that in work. This is Spirit Tracks for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And if you notice, if you look in the front, not on the side, a lot of these are just pictures. A lot of these are just regular mounds. A lot of these, heck, even the sky is just a flat picture. No one ever notices it. And here's another one. This is the Wonder Train here in VRC. I had to bump up the contrast because it's really hard to see. But that's just like a really simple poly model of a mountain placed on the way back, and like a small picture of like reflections right in front of it. Very convincing, and it allows you to get this sense of scale that you're actually inside a world. You don't have to do anything very complex to sell the idea that you're inside a world. Here's another one. It's called Night Cafe here in VRC. You could absolutely see they took advantage of the elevation. They used the roads going up to hide the fact that there is no background. In fact, if you look very closely, it gets darker, not just because of fog, because like the texture actually gets darker, and in the background, suddenly it just looks like it's blending in the back, but there's no actually buildings in the back as well. It just looks like there is a background, but suddenly there's not. All right, and that's it for environment backgrounds. I'm gonna try and speed this up because we are running out of time. Sound design. Let's slow down a little bit, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you. Let me just do this real quick. All right. I'm not gonna lie to you. Music sometimes could be very exhausting. Sometimes you just want to go into a VR chat world and just not the first thing you could like hear is like or like some like classical music for some reason for relaxation, but sometimes you just want dead air. Well, I'm not saying completely dead air, just the environment in general. So let's fill that. Let's slow down. Now, this is important because like if the first two was visual, this one is auditory. It's another one of the five senses. And it just helps create this fuller picture that the place is alive. And there's two important sounds that you should pay attention to whenever you're making a world. One is ambience. One is sound effects. Ambience is essentially sounds without a source, like the sound that you're hearing right now. It's just wind or water or the trees or traffic. It just doesn't come from one place. This is what we call static sound. This always comes with you whenever you're traveling to a world. And the other is sound effects with the source. This is like a specific horn, a specific sound, a specific button, birds, or anything like that. And how do we start? Whenever you're making a world, just one, turn off the music, then explore your map and listen. Try to imagine what everything sounds like, right? Even an empty room could have a sound. Say, like if you're living in an apartment, you may not notice it, but there might be urban sounds in the background. An empty office room, maybe the lights have a slight buzz to it. So let's try this out. Let's imagine a sound bed. Can we bring out the video now? Hello? There we go. So try to imagine what this would sound like. Over there, I could see like a bunch of trees. On the right side, I could see a blacksmith. Sorry if I had to keep it short though. Here's the things that I found with that. Well, there's a wooden gate, certainly medieval. We got a straw roof. There should be like a little rustle, like on that. Aside from the trees as well, we got some rocks, some dirt. It's a sunny day. Maybe it could be like there might be birds flying by. Definitely the hammer guy, pretty obvious. We got some tall grass, and maybe in the background we could have like a little bit of crickets. Extremely subtle. Let's play the video where what it actually sounds like and see if I'm correct. Or if you're correct. There we go. Lovely. So if you notice that, like there's this nice calmness to it, even with like just pure sound. And I know that none of you, like not none of you guys, a lot of you guys are not sound people. We have one hack for that, especially here in VR. Let me introduce to you the secret spice for sound. Ambisonics. It's 360 video, except it's audio. So let me demonstrate to you guys what it would sound like. Oh, whoops. All right. So this is a train station. And this would how it sound like. Now, pay attention to the sound. Notice that it encompasses everywhere. If you turn your head, you could tell the source of where the sound is. For the people who are seeing this on the flat screen, you could absolutely check this out, by the way, in another world. But if you're seeing this on camera, you might be hearing it in a proper sense from the point of view of the camera. Pretty cool, right? Let's have another one. Let's try the market. What would it sound like? It feels like you're there, right? We're not even the right environment for this, but it feels like you're there. This is the importance of sound. And last one, why not go to the beach? Maybe we could just be on the top, like be on the edges of the ocean. Let's take a listen. You could even hear like seagulls. Beautiful, right? Let's just imagine you're inside an actual beach. It just makes you shiver that it feels like you're actually there with just sound. And most people neglect sound, and I'm pretty sad about that. Ambisonics. There's a free library online. Check it out if you need an environment sound. So let's take a short moment to breathe a little. That was a lot of information, right? Like get yourself, like stand up, stretch a little bit if you have to, right? That was a lot of information. We already covered like backgrounds. We already covered composition. We already covered like sound effects, right? And I think we could add one more layer. If we had sight, if we had sound, maybe something you might have already noticed the moment I was interacting with ambisonics. Feedback. It's the thing that makes our monkey brain go wild. It makes us happy, like it makes us really happy, like if we want to just clap, right? And technically, since we're running out of time, we're going to lower this to two things. It's both the user experience and the feedback. User experience is basically the general perception of things of the user, and also how everything feels like whenever you're there, while feedback is the interaction. And we're going to add another sense to ourselves. It's touch. The more layers you stack on the sensory, the more immersive it gets. It creates this physicality. It makes our monkey brain go wee. And like, you know, the funny thing, I just added this like clap to my avatar, and people can't stop clapping me whenever I high five for a little bit. It makes people really giddy. And where do we start? It's very simple. We just create interaction wherever is possible. You don't have to create interaction with everything. You just have to take advantage of intuition. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be complex. And we have prefabs for it. The door I was using, we already have that. I'm surprised not a lot of people use that. We have the correct interactable objects. And also thanks for Arquitas for helping me out with these accessories that you see over here. It helps a lot. With physicality, it helps with just having everything feel right. So let's say if I pick up this sword, right? This sword feels weightless. It's easy because it's a short sword. But then what if we add a little bit of delay? This, it's really heavy. Even just a little delay, it just makes it harder. Your body just doesn't want to move faster. It just tries to, and it feels heavy because it's delayed. It's not as fast as this one. It's really slow. Here's another one. It's a lamp. It's a funky little lamp. Here we go. It is a very glitchy lamp, but even if you just pull, it feels very satisfying. Oh, it feels very satisfying to pull off. Heck, if you can't even manage those like physical things, we even have like these 3 types of buttons. We got your normal VRC one. You don't have to touch it. You have to press trigger, right? This one, you just have to touch it. and it presses down. But if you can, try to use these kinds of button where it's very tactile. Like I could just tap on it very slowly, right? It doesn't have to be like, and then when it reaches the bottom, it activates. And if you notice something there, it's feedback also. Because of the simple things that we have, we could also have feedback as well. Every interaction should have a reaction in as appropriately as we can. We can, but only the important ones. I forgot to demonstrate this part. If we had a door, we had this. It's this little control panel. This is a dial. You could spin it around. This is a slider. You could slide it around. We got a button, and we got a pull tab. We could use this for drawers, the dials for like something like volume. You could use the slide for like maybe like a brightness setting, and you could hide it all behind a little door. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we stacking? Again, I have to reiterate, the more senses we stack on one another, the easier the brain feels the gap. We have like if you guys had this comb in a VR chat world, there should be a comb that if you put up, because you could see the comb. If you put it up to your head, it vibrates and then it plays the brushy sound. It feels real. It's suddenly like you could feel like your hair is being brushed. Now, since we only have 3 minutes left, I'm gonna just basically speed explain all of this. It's important, but I don't have time. Oh, really? VR chat is down? Okay, cool. Okay. All right. I get to explain this a little bit better. I get to explain this a little bit better. Nice. All right. So we got Texture Atlas. This is basically the concept of putting like all your models materials together in one material. Like let's say, like even right now, right? You could see that you could absolutely put my avatar into the individual pieces, but it's all just one object. The fins are one object. The hair is just one object, and you could do it automatically in Blender. We have a tool for that called Cats. Trim sheets is another way to put multiple textures, multiple materials, but the difference is that trim sheets are different materials in one material, and you use that material to create the UVs. So like if you have like a stone texture, you just adjust the UV to plop down on that stone texture. If you have like a house, you could put the roof on like one part of the UV, the windows on one part of the UV, and all of that. These are things that you should probably just take note of, just take photos of, and like research for later. There's more for that. Another one is textile density. And this is mostly a mistake that most new people have. This is basically the pixel size of each texture. And if you have a consistent textile density, it helps with consistent texture sizes so things don't look weird. Another is kit bashing. This is essentially like multiple little models that you could attach to a low poly model to give it like a higher texture. And then like you could merge them and then project them and bake them down to the low poly model to give that detail. Another is draw calls. This is very important, especially for everyone who's using VR. The number of stuff to draw on screen, the fewer, the better. You could check on this on Unity, just find a way to do it. Like it's very simple. I just don't remember how to, but yeah. So like, let's say a good example of this is like, if I have 2 materials, that's 2 draw calls. And that's why we texture atlas, or we, shoot, I forgot the other term already, but That's why we try to reduce as much materials as we can. And please, 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 whenever you're making something, do not rely on post-processing. Please color your texture first. Because, like, I know it's very nice, it's very instant, but it's also very taxing for people. You have to keep that in mind, especially for people who are using VR, who are, like, having trouble on trying to even get VR chat to run. So keep that in mind. Another is culling. So, like, if you have buildings all around, if you don't see a side, cut it out. Just cut it out, delete it off the model if you can. Otherwise, there should be automatic culling tools that allows you to help. Another is level of detail, and this is basically we have back in Limsa Lumensa when we saw like when I mentioned that if you get closer, it suddenly gets more high poly. That's what we call level of detail. We got a low poly model and a high poly model. It gets more detail as you get closer. Use them sparingly here in VR chat though, because the VR chat isn't too friendly with file sizes. So yeah. And I think this is the most important one that most people kind of forgot when it comes to making games. Give yourself limits, please. I know it's very easy to throw everything that you want inside one model or one world, but what happened to the Quest people? They're the majority right now. If you could get yourself some limits, you will think much more creatively, right? Let's say like you have like a poly budget. This is how many polys I could get, right? Or you could have like the number of materials you could limit to that you could also use. Just don't go overboard. It helps a lot of people. This helps a lot of like, if you've seen like very large world that's supremely optimized because they give themselves limits for the most part, right? So give that a chance. And it allows, with psychology, by the way, it allows your brain to just think of ways to circumvent this limitation. And you could create this like amazing things somehow in the lowest possible thing. And a lot of, like you've seen a lot of games that did that in the early days. Try to do it here in VR. It'll benefit you and also change the way you think. And that's it for World Immersion 101. Please take a photo of this. Visit all those worlds. Visit all of those YouTube and websites. We got the Ambisonic sound library, free ambisonic sounds, world of level design, VRC prefabs, and all of that. All right. Let's take a couple of questions. If you want to ask some questions, by the way, ask in the Discord server. Otherwise, just wait for the end of the bring up the panel, right, and we'll just ask him. All right, let's hear him.
We bring up the questions. Okay, here we go. So hi, let me go down the list. So I have attendee user Splint, who asks, are there any good tricks when you're starting from a blank slate to keep things visually cohesive?
This is block out. Block everything out. If you want to make everything visually cohesive, you'd want to basically template everything first before you place down the actual assets. Like put down cubes of every object that you want, like buildings, just put down a cube, very simple shapes. And and as you work through, you could add detail from bits of pieces from here and there all together. And as you are working through, you could start seeing if one thing looks wrong and the other thing looks wrong. And you could like correct that right away before you even place like everything finalized.
Awesome. Let's see. Another question by Johari. Do you think there's space for non-diegetic sound within world creation, or would that in most cases break immersion?
Non-diegetic sound, actually, I do think that would be excellent to have, especially when you have UI. With non-diegetic sound, it allows you to create feedback on things that shouldn't exist. normal in the world, but it helps like the person guide towards like maybe a thing, like maybe like a mission objective, or like a maybe like a ringing bell if like a train is about to come by, or if you have a notification that like a friend's coming in, you could have a sound. It helps the immersion, but don't try to use it too much. If you try to go for full immersion, use it as less as possible and use the sounds around you and the objects around you as a sound source instead of like something that you could hear everywhere.
Awesome. This is from attendee Hexed Rose. Majority of references were outdoor. I'm assuming these ideas can be used for indoor environments, or should there be heavier focus on something to exaggerate the environment indoors?
You could absolutely use this indoors. In fact, this is what makes everything excellent when it comes to indoors. Like, let's say if the central piece of your room is like the chess piece, you could build around that, and like you could have like multiple hotspots where things could be like a good place, and then you could build around that, and it will help the design of interior for the most part, and it helps like have a central focus. So let's say if you have like an office, you should have like one corner that's the focus is the computer. It doesn't have to be a very big scale. It could be very small as well. Like heck, even a simple elevator, you could like have a off tilted door. It feel like there's something definitely wrong.
Sure thing. This is a question from Tilla. They said, you mentioned during your event Limsa and Gridania. What are your thoughts about Ulda?
Ulda? It's actually a fantastic way to like I think it's a very fantastic way to use composition while seemingly that you can't see outside of. Like in a way, like you have like this multiple hotspots. You got like the central area with the large corridor and set of stairs. You got the outside where it's just like this large oval that you could see like sides of the streets where it feels like a market and all of that stuff. I think Ulda is a fascinating place. It's a really good a really good place to check out if you want to like stand around, look at the environment, see how they do it, and it will help a lot. I think Ulda is a fascinating place.
It's also my starting world,
like,
so I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got time for one more question, I think.
Yep. So last question. This is from Finn GW2. They ask, I'm not sure if you have experience in Blender, but do you know any way to make realistic fog or atmospheric haze in projects?
I usually just rely on shaders for this on Unity. On Blender, I have absolutely no idea. The only way I use Blender is I use it for the most part, just building the stuff and not actually having the final result in there. So I don't know how to render fog. Usually you could use like multiple planes. Like this is a hack that I use whenever I do need fog. You could use like multiple transparent pictures and stack them onto each other in multiple distances so it will look like it's actually fog. There you go. All right. Thank you, everyone. That has been Immersive Worlds 101. Thank you. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Furality. Please take a photo of this if you guys need some resources. And that is all. Goodbye.